And so Mike put his finger in his face and just told him he thought his behavior was reprehensible, and that wasn't Boyer that needed to grow up. It was him, And at that point, you can see Ben Weeder coming through the doorway there. Several people got between them to sort of prevent a fight, because most of the competitors that have spoken about the incident afterwards were convinced something was going to go down. The stars had aligned that everybody could get fat off of this. So they did not care to have a guy such as Mike, who was not towing the corporate line, number one. Number two, couldn't promote products like Arnold could. Arnold had proven himself to be the optimal pitchman. I knew Mike was special when I first encountered him, because nobody had a mind like his. And I thought, okay, this is a guy that's very passionate about the truth and a guy you can learn from. More of this anti-Mentzer rhetoric was proliferating throughout social media. And eventually I thought, if I don't write it, it's not going to get done. So I better do it.
That's what's so cool about this book is, like, as you read it and listen to it, you start seeing the evolution of his thought and how he changes his training over time. And it's so inspiring, because I'm reading, I'm like, oh, I just want to go and like read all of Ayn Rand and like and all the other philosophy that he mentions and science. It inspires you to want to learn. I mean, I think that's what you've also done with this book, John, which you might have been an unintended consequence, is that people will read it and then it will be like a catalyst for learning about all this other useful stuff, reading Nietzsche and all the rest of it.
Well, that would be great, and Mike would certainly be pleased with that.
Right, and encouraging a lot more people to be critical thinkers and to
If someone today put a gun to my head and said, "What's the most productive program you've put your clients on?" I'm embarrassed to say it was.
Lawrence Snell here, and welcome back to High Intensity Business, your one-stop shop for growing your strength training business and fueling your passion for high intensity training. Today, I am joined by the prolific writer and strength training advocate, John Little. John, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast.
Hey, always a pleasure to speak with you, Lawrence.
Yes, the feeling is extremely mutual. And I just wanted to say, first and foremost, congratulations on this wonderful book, right?
Thank you.
Reason you're on today is we're talking about Mike Mentzer, American Odysseus. I just got finished listening to the entire thing. It's epic. I really enjoyed it. And just in preparation for this, I was just looking at the cover. And like I was saying to you, like I'm not really that interested in bodybuilding history, although the story is fascinating and painful to listen to, right? All the truth seeking that Mike was doing and the amount of pushback from the bodybuilding industry. But anyway, just looking at the book, looking at the cover where he's doing this pose, right? I can't take my eyes off his physique. Like he was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like his body is unbelievable,
That one shot in the photo insert of him doing the vacuum pose blew me away. Like I'd seen.
Which pose is that one?
That's a color one. Oh, you listened to the book.
Yeah, but there's the one, I'm looking at the one on your, I can actually share my, go on YouTube, guys, and we'll make sure you see this. But it's the one where you've got on Heavy Duty College on the promo video for the book. It's that one.
This is the one I'm thinking of.
Oh yeah.
Like, that's crazy.
That is. I mean, they're all crazy. I mean, the guy, just even if he's not posing, he just looks insane, right?
Yeah,
it looks really good. Yeah, and just phenomenal book. I mean, obviously, you and I have spoken a lot on the podcast, and I've read The Mike Mentzer Way a long time ago. I think I've read a couple of his books, his older books that you wrote together. But I didn't know so much. I didn't know about the time he spent in prison. I didn't know about all his mental illness, because I challenged you a bit on our last podcast about, like, why didn't Mike keep working out? Yeah, he should know better, blah, blah, blah. And how ignorant of me. I didn't know all these things that stopped him from. Yeah.
I mean, it's a common question, to be honest. Randy Roach said the same thing, and even in his preface to the book. But yeah, he had just had other things going on in his life at that point.
It's putting it lightly, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's this one. I'm just going to share my screen for this one. This picture here. Uh, Hopefully you can see that okay.
Oh
You see
yeah.
that one? Yeah. Was
Yeah.
that the moment when he, because he said it in the book, he said about how he got up and he approached Arnold Schwarzenegger and he pointed at him and they all thought he was going to strike him and then he cowered into the corner. Is that this moment?
Yeah.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Do you want to just give some context for the listeners of what,
Yeah.
all the viewers of what this is?
My God, there's so much context to the 80 Olympia, but in this instance, uh, Arnold had announced he had applied to compete in August of that year. The Olympia was in October. Um, so it wasn't a last minute decision, contrary to the Arnold mythos that has been circulating. But he was waiting until the judging panel had been selected, hadn't been finalized, until about maybe 20 minutes before this photo was taken. But once he knew that he had uh, adequate judges that would be likely to vote in his direction, he announced he was going to compete. And so when he walked into the competitors meeting, some people knew about it already because the word had kind of trickled out. So it didn't really have an impact on them. But it it was pretty obvious that with CBS filming it to beam into, several hundred million households, this was a PR opportunity he wasn't going to let go. Arnold was the guy. He was the face of bodybuilding. He was the superstar. And he had a movie that was going to be coming out, Conan the Barbarian. So he wanted to assert himself at the meeting as the head honcho. And the first thing he did was say he wanted two weight classes, just like when he and Franco had competed in the 74 Olympia or 75 Olympia. And Boyer Coe was the one who was spearheading the movement for one weight class. And Bill Pearl at that time was still the head judge. And he said, Boyer, why don't you tell the room what your thoughts and reasons are for wanting one class? And he did. And then the floor was given to Arnold to present his argument. And he presented his argument. Then it was back to Boyer. And when Boyer tried to speak, Arnold shut him down, saying, "Oh, why don't you, we're out, talk like an adult. This is silly. We can't keep flip flopping on having weight divisions and this and that." And uh, that upset Mike because he was just sort of observing this dialogue going on. And as he said, he didn't really care if Arnold competed or Arnold didn't compete, but he didn't like the way Arnold had spoken to Boyer. So he stood up, or he didn't sit. Sorry, I'm ahead of myself. So he just said, Arnold, if one weight class is easier to judge and everybody here but one person wants one weight class, why not go that way? And Arnold, as if a serious question wasn't worthy of a serious answer, replied, "Oh, we all know you lost last year, Mentzer, because of your big belly." And it was like, not only did it not address Mike's question, it was just an ad hominem attack. So as Mike told me, he said, I let that bother me probably a little more than I should have. But he got up and started going toward Arnold and said, "You're the one who said we should talk like adults. And now you brought it down to this personal level." And a lot of the competitors thought, this, and it happened so quickly. Like Mike went from being 20 feet away to being where you see him in the photograph. He said, on the way over, I decided I wasn't going to hit him because Arnold went and sat down at that point. And so Mike put his finger in his face and just told him he thought his behavior was reprehensible and that wasn't Boyer that needed to grow up. It was him, And at that point, you can see Ben Weeder coming through the doorway there. Several people got between them to sort of prevent a fight because most of the competitors that have spoken about the incident afterwards were convinced something was going to go down. So that was to me, it's a great photograph because it symbolizes, in many respects, the Mike Mentzer story. Arnold, Ben Weeder, certain of the judges, they were all on the side of the industry that a new movie coming out is going to promote Weeder's Greatest Pitchman. And Joe had a new product line called Olympians Supplements. And he'd already featured or created an ad with Arnold as Conan, advertising this product. So there was a big ad campaign looking to be launched. Almost all of the judges were distributors of Weeder products in their respective countries. So this was a huge ad campaign backed by a multi-million-dollar movie. The stars had a line that everybody could get fat off of this. So they did not care to have a guy such as Mike who was not towing the corporate line, number one. Number two, couldn't promote products like Arnold could. Arnold had proven himself to be the optimal pitchman for Joe Weeder's protein supplements. So anyway, the picture tells the story. The fellow, well, there's Kathy Gelfo on the far left, Mike's fiance at the time. The striped sweatpant you see in the lower left-hand corner, that's Boyer Coe's leg. To the left of Mike's shoulder is Jacques Blomart, one of the judges from Belgium of the IFBB. Ben Weeder, the president of the IFBB, is next to him. Peter McCarthy is the head right at Mike's neck. And he was the judge who was replaced at the last minute by the promoter Paul Graham and replaced with Brendan Ryan, who was a longtime friend of Arnold's and worked for Paul Graham. I'm trying to think who the other people are. I know Mitz Kawashima is at the far right of the doorway. He had been, as of the year before, a partner with Arnold in the Mr. Hawaiian Islands competition, and they would remain business partners for the next 30 years. But in the image, all you see is one man standing up to the face of the industry. And you look at the two bodybuilders, Ken Waller and Samir Benoot on the right, they're not getting involved. It's they knew which side the bread was buttered on. Arnold was the guy, and any crumbs that fell off his table went to them. So they were happy with the crumbs. Mike was more interested in, I would say, truth with a capital T, rather than the smaller T truth that you use to sell product. And so to me, that is the symbolism, the perfect symbol of Mike Mentzer versus the industry.
Yeah, it's a great photo. Thank you for going through that. What's been the reaction? How long's the book been out now?
It came out in May.
So what's been the reaction so far?
Positive, which is great. Yeah, all the reviews that I've seen have been positive, which is good. I mean, for me, it's not a book I wanted to write, to be honest.
Why?
Because I was too close to the subject matter. I thought since I was a friend of Mike's, it's going to be real hard for me not to grind axes. It's going to be real hard for me to remain neutral. And that's when I asked Randy Roach, who's probably the premier historian of bodybuilding, to ride shotgun on this project. I said, I'll give you the manuscript where you see me drifting out of my lane.
Oh, wow.
If I've misinterpreted something, if what I'm saying is not accurate, I need you to call me on it, because it serves nobody, least of all Mike, if I just go on a screed, right? And try and right any wrong I feel that Mike may have experienced. So I wanted to tell the story. I thought it was a human story, first and foremost. And it's an existential tale where there are no real heroes and villains. It's just, this is the trajectory of one human life. And, from cradle to grave.
Yeah.
And this is what occurred in his life during that time. And that's, I think, if I can compliment myself, that I achieved that. It wasn't it wasn't Mike was great and everyone else was an idiot or this sort of thing. It was, I looked hard into Mike's life and I knew from my own experience that he had to deal with a lot. You know, you mentioned the mental illness, you know, the bodybuilding world turning its back on him, the institutionalization, and this was a guy whose crime was trying to bring science and reason into the world and sport of bodybuilding. And that just wasn't, those weren't welcome house guests there.
Yeah. Well, I can confirm that I think you did an amazing job of staying unbiased. I love that you brought Randy Roach in to help you maintain that. You know, when you listen to the first or read the first half, you're like, this isn't unbiased. Because it's like, well, no, obviously Mike goes through some trials and tribulations, but it's kind of an upward trajectory for a while. And
Mhm.
then obviously it starts going downhill. And then you're like, oh, okay, no, this is real.
Yeah.
You know, so you can see that. So I think you did a great job with that. Yeah. And forgive me if you sort of already answered this in a way, but what was the main motivation for you to do this?
Uh, there's a couple of things. One, I saw Mike's life and his work
Yeah.
misrepresented by a lot of people in the industry. And that bothered me because no one was saying, wait, you know, here's the facts and here's the evidence to support those facts. And the second thing was when Mike died, there was no funeral, there was no celebration of life, there was no memorial, there was no headstone. He was cremated. His ashes sat on a shelf in Joanne Sharkey's home for over 10 years. And then shortly before she passed away, she dumped them in the Pacific Ocean. And I thought that is just not good with me as a
Yeah.
friend. And therefore, I mean, I can't go to a cemetery and pay my respects to where he's buried because he's not buried. And I thought, you know, it's like he never existed. And I'm sure to a lot of people that they'd be happy with that premise. I wasn't. And so I thought, well, if nothing else, this book is his headstone. This is his memorial. Um, and I was struck by the fact that when his father passed away, it was a paragraph in a local Pennsylvania newspaper. That was it. You know, the guy lived 60 something years, summarized in a paragraph and forgotten the next day. And I thought, you know, Mike, at least to me, he was worthy of something more than that, you know. And so, like I say, I undertook the book to create his memorial in a way, or at least to acknowledge his life. Um, but yeah, the people that had been criticizing him and misrepresenting and caricaturing his position uh, got under my skin a bit.
Yeah, I think that's understandable given how close your relationship was with him. And I think no one has done a better job of preserving his legacy than you have.
Well, thank you.
In terms of the books, the YouTube channel is unbelievable. For those aren't aware, Heavy Duty College on YouTube. It's growing really successfully, and John does a great job, and the people you work with to help get all the materials to publish those, edit and publish those videos. I was just curious, do you have like a tradition that you do on June 10th? I think that was the date of his.
I
Yeah.
really don't. No,
Okay.
I don't. And sometimes it's upon me before I realize the significance of it.
Yeah.
But to me, you know, having gone through a somewhat similar thing in the Bruce Lee world, where Bruce Lee was a big hero, if you will, to me when I was growing up. His death anniversary isn't isn't that significant. That's where his story stopped. You know, it's what occurred before that that is the important stuff. You know, the life he lived, what he did, what he researched, how he lived, what he taught. So the anniversary of a person's death is basically when that's it. There's no more coming. And that's not worthy of celebrating to me, typically. I will acknowledge it on occasion just because I think it's the right thing to do. but um, I'm more interested in digging into what he did when he was alive and trying to understand it better. I think that honors his memory better than just saying, "Oh, here's, Mike died, you know, 24 years ago, and isn't it a shame that he passed away?" Yeah, it
Yeah.
is, but that's life, right? People
Yeah.
people they care about every day, so it's not really significant to me in terms of an anniversary.
I get it. Yeah, no, makes sense. This was a really long book.
Yeah,
Whereas like
as you
500.
mentioned,
Yeah, yeah, it was oh yeah, as I was saying for those listening or watching, I was like, "Oh man, am I going to get this done before the interview?" Because I can't imagine not listening to the entire thing before we talk. So I did 1.5 speed for a little bit there, and I had to like when I was going through the philosophy bit, I was like, okay, I have no idea what just happened. I need to rewind that and really pay attention because obviously, when you epistemology, I can even say the word, uh,
epistemology. Yeah.
epistemology. Thank you. Um, you talk about objectivism, all these things, which I find fascinating. Although I can't pronounce them, yeah, I'm like, okay, I need to re-listen to that bit. But yeah, uh, but still gripping all the way through. And I'm just curious, like, in terms of your process when you're writing that book, like, how long does that take? And what does your process look like? What's your routine when you're writing a book like that?
Um, it's an interesting question.
Oh,
In
that's the
s-
photo I meant, by the way. The cover photo I can see right there. That's the one. Yeah, that's the one I was talking about.
that's a
Yeah,
great dramatic shot, eh?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I mean, in some respects, you could say I've been working on this book for 30 years or more,
Mm,
maybe since the 80s, uh, because I knew Mike was special when I first encountered him, because nobody had a mind like his. And I thought, okay, this is a guy that's very passionate about the truth and a guy you can learn from. So, the very first seminar I went to, I had a Super 8 sound camera and I filmed a little bit of Mike because I was more interested in Arnold, who was coming. A year later, Mike did a seminar in a place near Toronto, and I traveled there with my cassette recorder, recorded it. And then I went back and listened to it 50, 60, 70 times. And then I asked a friend who was studying physiology, I said, "Is this true?" And he said, "Yes." And I thought, "Oh, okay, good." So I'll listen to it again, try and understand it. And then when we became friends, if I'd interview him for a magazine, I always kept the tape because he always said something that really got me enthusiastic and wanting to learn more. The genetic, for example, uh, differential in response to exercise. I remember calling him just before I went to Helsinki for Dorian Yates' uh, Mr. Olympia win. And I was on the phone. I was going to be at the airport to catch a flight from LA to Helsinki in a matter of hours. And I was talking to him and I was recording it. And that's where he dropped that gem about individual tolerance to exercise. And I was like, wow. So again, took that, wrote out by hand everything he said and poured over it. And I thought, this is like, I was excited. Like, this is groundbreaking. This is awesome. As against going up to a champion who was competing in the Olympian saying, how do you train? And it was just rote material that came out. There was no looking into it. There was no talk about genetic differentiation. There was none of this. And to me, it was just vanilla. It was not,
mm.
it didn't excite me, whereas Mentzer's stuff did. So anyway, I'd amassed a fair archive of Mike Mentzer materials over between 1980 and 2001. So I knew this stuff. And when Nicholas Chelma wrote his book, I would spend hours with him on the phone, sharing this stuff or sending him stuff so that his novel slash biography could be contextually correct. Um, and I kind of thought his book might get translated and published. It did later, but he had to do that. But at the time, it didn't. And more of this anti-Mentzer rhetoric was proliferating throughout social media. And eventually I thought, if I don't write it, it's not going to get done. So I better do it. And I tend to do things chronologically because, from his early years up till his last day, because a lot of truth comes out of that. You can see something that is attributed to Mike, for example, his consolidated program. And people will say, well, he didn't train that way. This is obviously horseshit. He didn't train that way. And here he is advocating it. And it's like, well, look at the timeline, look at the chronology. When he was competing, he was still training high intensity, brief compared to everybody else, infrequent compared to everybody else, but he was on steroids, which speed up the recovery process.
And a lot younger.
And then along come the 90s. He's not taking steroids. He's training natural trainees. And when he tried them with the routine that he used, when he was taking steroids, they overtrained. So
which was a quote unquote low volume, approach, which was what was that? 3 days a week, full body, was it? Or no?
When he was competing.
Yeah, specifically the program he tried with natural trainees, which was the same as when he was. Yeah,
it was the same, but he reduced the volume. So, for example, where he may have done 2 cycles of pec fly to chest press, he reduced it to 1 because he knew that 2 would dig a very deep hole and they wouldn't be recovered properly.
Meaning 2 sets versus 1 set.
Yeah. And the idea was start with 1 set, but go to your training journal and see how your progress is. And if you get the inclination that I think maybe I need 2 sets, well, do 2 sets, but go to your training journal and what the effect is. And then he talked about, the genetic variation, how some clients couldn't respond until he really cut the volume back and the frequency. But that was in the 1990s and late 1990s versus 1976. So you can't say, well, he didn't train that way. No, he didn't. He was training natural trainees and found this to be the best for them. So context was very important. And you get that with the chronology, where you don't, if you just read something that could have been from 1977 and contrast it with what he wrote in 1998.
Yeah.
And say, these pieces don't fit. What kind of...
That's what's so cool about this book is like, as you read it and listen to it, you start seeing the evolution of his thought and how he changes his training over time. And it's so inspiring because I'm reading, I'm like, oh, I just want to go and like read all of Ayn Rand and like, and all the other philosophy that he mentions and science. It inspires you to want to learn. I mean, I think that's what you've also done with this book, John, which you might have been an unintended consequence is that people will read it and then it will be like a catalyst for learning about all this other useful stuff, reading Nietzsche and all the rest of it.
Well, that would be great. And Mike would certainly be pleased with that.
Right. And encouraging a lot more people to be critical thinkers and to, think for themselves.
Oh, for sure. I mean, if that could be communicated, Mike would be happy. He wasn't, despite the rhetoric, he was not a dogmatist in the sense that, like when he said there is only one valid theory, people took that to mean there's only one training routine. And that wasn't what he said. He was saying the theory under which the routines flow is universally applicable. Number one, you have to train intensely, briefly, and infrequently. And let's break that down. It just means you have to train intense enough to stimulate growth. And you have to train brief enough that you can train intensely enough to stimulate growth. And then don't train again until you've recovered. That's basically it. And the way you can establish whether or not those principles are valid is by looking at their opposite as being true. So for that to be false, what he said, then you'd have to train with insufficient intensity to stimulate growth. You should do so much volume that you overwhelm your recovery resources. And 3, you shouldn't recover before you train again. Those were the only universal principles when he said one valid theory. The application of those principles is going to vary with every individual. You for example might find, I like a 3-day a week program. My journal says I'm responding to it. I don't need to train once every 4 or 5 days. Great.
Yeah,
Great.
power to you. Yeah.
And and the same thing, if you said, yeah, you know what, I did the pre-exhaust combo for my triceps, but I felt I could have given a little more, so I went back and did a set of skull crushers. Fine. So long as you're making progress. Doesn't
Yeah.
really matter.
Yeah.
Mike just said one set is the logical starting point. Because if you start with an arbitrary number like 15 and you don't progress, where do you go? Do you go up to 16 or down to 14? But if you start at 1, you can only go up. So that was his reasoning. But as I mentioned, he's been caricatured as this. Oh, he just said one set every 6 years. That's not going to work. And it's like, well, he never said that, and you have to keep it in the context of what he did say. So
Some people,
yeah, I'll tell you something interesting about writing the biography, and something about Mike I didn't know until I started writing the biography was the mental illness. I didn't know that. I knew him. I spent time with him, never got a whiff of it. I thought when he became odd in the very late 1980s that he was on something. That
like
was the,
some kind of drug or something.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, I
I
was going to
didn't,
say, because it seems quite obvious. It's definitely something wrong when you're on the phone to him.
yeah. And it
Yeah.
was like, it was alarming to me as a friend. But when I began to collect my data to go through for the book, I read every article he ever wrote. And I kept seeing the word depression, depression,
Mm.
depression, anxiety, depression, depression. I thought, boy, that's happening a lot. Like, I don't recall reading any other bodybuilders stuff where that is even mentioned, let alone it keeps resurfacing. And Jerry Branham, who is a writer in the bodybuilding world, has been for a long time. He let he just casually mentioned in a conversation on a podcast that he knew Mike, was friendly with Mike, and that Mike had told him that his mother suffered from depression, and that Mike was worried that he had acquired that as well. And I was like, whoa, well, that explains quite a bit. And then when I was looking at the institutionalization records, he was not, he was given psychiatric medication. He wasn't there to dry out from drug use.
Yeah.
They detected there's something wrong, and they tried to correct it with antipsychotic drugs. And I got the image of John Nash, from A Beautiful Mind,
Yeah.
who would have these episodes of psychoses where, what was unreal was real to him. And he tried to fight that by focusing on mathematics, which in old school psychiatry was a left brain
Mm.
activity, spatial relationships, all that kind of logic. And he thought that if he could develop that, it would keep the right hemisphere at bay, basically, which is the creative, the impulsive. And I saw the same thing with Mike,
Yeah, it's a
because
great comparison. Yeah.
he went to hard logic, Ayn Rand, Aristotle, this and that, to strengthen his mind, to keep that at bay. Until ultimately, like John Nash, he did need to have medication for that. So I didn't know that about him until I was researching the book. And that was an epiphany. Really, it was like, whoa, that explains a lot. Um, because it was a ticking time bomb. And it was a time bomb he was aware of. And he also knew about the potential exacerbating effects of taking things like steroids could have on that, because he wrote about it. And anything that I think he attempted to self medicate when you're depressed, anything that is more stimulatory is going to bring about homeostasis artificially. So, big caffeine drink, Mike's very strong coffee, nicotine
Yeah.
in the cigarettes in the final years, amphetamines at the time to suppress appetite and to be able to do your workouts. Very easy to, if you're starting to get depressed, to take a couple more of those, and pretty soon
Yeah.
reality isn't what it is, and it that was, to me, that was the final piece of the puzzle coming into place. That explained it. How a man who was the embodiment of, if you will, the healthy mind and a healthy body, the professorial intellect with this tremendous physique, could suddenly have an Achilles heel, somewhere.
Yeah.
And that made the story more human to me as well. I mean, if you take Arnold, for example, the story of Arnold, as it's been told, is he was just a guy with a vision and a drive, and
Yeah.
he had a plan, and he worked the plan, and every step was successful because he was this brilliant uh,
No one
master.
talks about his ethics along the way. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what we've been handed. But
Mm.
as an average person, you show me a guy that's never made an error. His plan has always worked out just the way he thought it would, and his everything he touches turns to gold. I can't relate to that. That's not my
Right.
experience. Show me
Yeah.
a guy that's fallen down, figured out a way to pick himself up. Now you got my interest, because that's a more realistic story from my vantage point.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so interesting. Just talking about the training and how that's evolved. Remind me, like, how towards the end of Mike's life, how closely was his approach aligned with what yourself and Doug McGuff wrote in Body by Science? Because I know it's very similar. Trying to recall, the Mensa way and some of Mike's work in terms of like the consolidation program and different training approaches. I feel like you may have took that one step further and advanced it slightly. Can you just elaborate on that? Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you look at Heavy Duty 2, Mind and Body, which was released in 1996, he had his consolidated program, and that was 3 exercises once a week. So if you read Doug McGuff's material from Ultimate
Okay.
Exercise,
Yeah.
which came out, he self-published a book called The Ultimate Exercise Bulletin. Really great book, great book.
Oh yeah.
And he was starting to contribute to Mike's website back then. This would be 98, maybe 99. And he had mentioned that, he'd started clients out twice a week with a big 5 program of compound movements, and then within a month reduced it to 3 exercises once a week.
That was
And then,
Mensa said that, sorry.
no, that was Doug McGuff
Yeah, it was Doug's. Okay,
and
yeah, yeah,
his
I've heard
program.
that from Doug.
So
Yeah.
basically, he was taking Mike's consolidated program, or the principles of it, and applying it to his clients with great success.
I guess what I'm
That
trying to understand is, do you think Mike would have ended up at the same place as you
he
guys
was
did?
he was there before
It
we
was
were.
he was there. Okay, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
right,
yeah, because his consolidated program was 3 exercises once a week.
right,
His first
yeah,
one, and then later he thought, there's a bit of overlap in that, so we could probably get that down to 2, and that was his final evolution of the consolidated program.
right.
So yeah, I mean, there's nothing original in Body by Science.
No, not tried to.
Yeah, I mean,
Like I'm trying to expose you guys.
we
Yeah,
didn't break any new ground. It was all stuff that was in the science literature to begin with, sprinkled in with what we knew from Mike and what Doug had learned from Ken Hutchins, I guess,
yep.
uh, and our own experience empirically as trainers with clients. So, I
Yeah,
know
it
it was,
sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say it was embraced by the super slow community. Um, but I mean, that really, a lot of it came from Mike Mentzer.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think I have read Heavy Duty too. It's a long time ago, so I should remember that. But I also just want to say, like, I really hope the listeners, viewers are just taking stock of the humility you are showing, John, and that McGuff always shows.
Hmm.
You know, like there's just too much hubris, too much arrogance in our space, and it's just really refreshing to me to hear that, to be honest. Um, so hopefully it inspires others. So okay, so you feel like okay, so my next question was going to be like, where do you think he would be at now in terms of his views on exercise? Do you have any idea on how they may have evolved since, or if he was still around?
It's funny that that's a topic that's been floating around high intensity things. And some say, oh, he would have gotten more volume, or he would have, or no, and he wouldn't have. I mean,
Doubtful.
his principles were pretty firm. I suspect, and this is just an opinion, he would have reduced the volume further.
If that was possible.
Yeah, and I'll tell you an anecdote. Because he had said he had a couple of clients, even in '98, who were doing one set once a week, and everybody dismissed that. I dismissed that. It's like, what are these guys, 95? So, but I wanted to do a fat loss study, which you might be familiar with, because I think we've talked about it. But the snapshot is, when I'd opened my fitness center, I was extolling high intensity training as the total fitness program. We had the West Point study and blah, blah, blah. You could do cardio. It's full range of motion. It helps flexibility. It's progressive resistance. It builds strength. Genetics determine mass. So if you got the genetics, it'll realize it. To me, it was check mark in every box.
Mm-hmm.
But I was still getting people coming in off the street who would, buy the Shape magazine or Muscle and Fitness or whatever, Men's Fitness. What about cardio? What about my cardio? And I want to lose weight. I need to be more active. And I thought, well, no, you don't. Let's do a study to prove to them that they don't need to do anything other than what I'm prescribing in terms of exercise. And it was basically the Nautilus diet that L. Darden wrote about, which was same macronutrient split that Mike always advocated: 60% carbs, 25% protein, 15% fats, but calorie reduced. I think the men started at 1,700 calories, and every 2 weeks, 100 calories would come out of it. But we did the shopping list, the menus, the recipes, so it was uniform. And we had about 36 people, I believe, who took part in it, and just regular folk. They weren't varied in age from 30 to their 70s. So they weren't, genetic specimens. They're just regular people. And I wasn't out to do anything of a Mike Mentzer way. The way we were training people at the gym was 6 exercises, 1 set to failure. It was a leg press, seated row, 10-degree chest, overhead press, optional abs. That was about it. So we started this program with that. And we had done a study on frequency using a bod pod to see when the benefit showed up after a workout. And on average, it was a bell curve, but it was 6.6 days for most people. So that was, instead of Darden's 3 days a week, where you increase the amount or volume of exercises performed over that period of time in 10 weeks, we would hold it once a week because we had that study. And rather than adding exercises, we'll just stay with the 6. That'll be fine. So anyway, we did first 2 weeks, everybody's in a negative calorie balance. So we expected they would lose fat, and they did. But when we tested them in the bod pod, they had also lost muscle. And I was like, whoa, what's this about? And I was stunned by it. It was like my whole worldview has been turned upside down. Where do I go? And I thought, well, maybe if intensity really is what we've all been led to believe it is, doing 6 exercises means they're pacing themselves. They won't give 100% to anyone. So let's cut it back to 4. There, I think I solved the problem. So 2 weeks go by, put them back in the bod pod. They lost fat and they lost muscle again. And I was like, okay, I haven't got a clue. What is this? But I didn't have any other variables to play with, really. So I thought, well, 6 exercises, they lost muscle. 4 exercises, they've lost muscle. So I can't go up in volume. It's not like if I went to 5, suddenly I'd find the secret, right? So I thought, well, we'll take them down to 3 and see what happens. 2 weeks went by, tested them again. They lost fat. They didn't lose muscle. So I thought, okay, now I see a pattern. 6 exercises once a week, lose muscle. 4 exercises once a week, lose muscle. 3 exercises, preserve muscle. Does that mean that if we went to 2, they would gain? And I thought, it's too risky. But I'll cut the group in half. I'll have half of them do 2. And that way, if they fall off the cliff, I can bring them back up to 3 again. So half the group did 2 sets. Essentially, Mike's consolidated program that he did in 98 of 2 exercises once a week. 2 weeks went by, put them back in the bod pod. The people that did 2 sets gained muscle and lost fat. So then everybody went to 2 sets for the last 2 weeks of the study. So if someone today put a gun to my head and said, what's the most productive program you've put your clients on? I'm embarrassed to say it was 2 sets once a week. It took the clients longer to get changed for the workout than it did to work. But that's the data we had. And
Yeah.
to answer your question, and this is where things get interesting about where Mike would have gone. He knew that the stimulus and the recovery interval and the adaptation interval were genetically determined. So you might be different than me in terms of how much volume and frequency you can tolerate. But the other thing he said 2 things. One was perfect routine will stimulate maximal growth with the least disturbance of the recovery ability. Meaning, if you stimulate growth with 1 set, theoretically, doing a second set will only dig a deeper hole. It won't give you any additional growth, and it will prolong the recovery process to some degree. So I don't, and given the size principle that, as you fatigue the muscle, more fibers are brought in, it argues against the need, if you do that properly, of a second set or a third set or a fourth set. So he also said, the other thing he said was, as you grow stronger, the stresses you bring to your body grow greater, and therefore they must be compensated for. When you started squatting 90 pounds, yes, there is an energy deficit that's created. If that weight suddenly goes to 400 pounds, that's a much deeper energy deficit. So as you grow stronger, you have to allow a little bit more time for recovery and adaptation. And that's when he was talking about a couple people doing 1 set. Now, I know this sounds like men from Mars have landed.
Not at all.
But it got me thinking, and I was going through some of his videos and writings about the indirect effect, which a lot of people have dismissed, and how Mike spoke about the body's growth mechanism, that switch being hit, sending an anabolic signal throughout the body. And I thought, there is some evidence for this, that this does occur. We know that in studies, for example, where a person just trains their left biceps,
Yeah.
the right bicep gets a little
Right.
bit.
That cross education effect.
Yeah, cross education.
Yeah.
But in the study that I saw, the trained arm improved by 9%. The untrained arm improved by 2%. But if you did that same 1 arm exercise and added legs, the trained arm went up to 37% improvement. The untrained arm, 10%.
Oh, really?
That's more than training alone for that arm.
Mm-hmm.
That to me suggested there's something to this indirect effect thing. That once you hit a switch, there is an anabolic wave that ripples through the body. And I think you can look at it in reverse. For example, when sarcopenia occurs, that is a diminishment typically of testosterone in males anyway. And you can still be training, you can be on your feet all day, and your muscles are going to get smaller and weaker. That's a systemic effect. Testosterone doesn't just go to your legs, doesn't just go to your biceps, it goes throughout the body. The myostatin and myokines like decarin that bind it also produce a systemic effect throughout the body. So it got me thinking, if we can liken it to the old Jonesian analogy of throwing a rock into a pond, the bigger the rock you throw, the greater the ripples throughout the pond. When you just train your arms, that's a stone you're throwing in. The ripples may not have enough energy to make it to the shore, let alone throughout the whole pond. So what if, since compound movements tend to produce greater hormonal releases and myokine releases, and there's some evidence that training legs improves limbs like arms, even when you're not training your arms. What if you made a really big rock? So you create a hybrid exercise, a combination of, say, a belt squat and a chin up. So I've been doing individual case studies at the gym with this for about 3 months now.
Ooh.
And everybody has gotten incredibly stronger. But this weird phenomenon is that in progressive resistance, typically the case is you do 12 reps. And I, as your trainer, say, okay, that's high enough. Let's increase the weight. We'll get you down to 8 and we'll build back up to 12 again. And that's the way it goes. Increase the weight, reps go down. Reps are going up simultaneously with the weight. I've never seen that before. And I have clients that are 86 doing this.
And these are trained people?
Yeah, people that have been with me in some cases for 20 years.
And what's the program is once a week, 2 exercises, a belt squat and a chin up.
It's a one hybrid exercise. It's like if you know the Nautilus multi-exercise machine?
Yeah.
And they have the belt you put on and you got 3 steps you can use.
Right.
Most of them go, depending on their height, to the second step. Across the carriage, I just put a straight bar. So it's almost a natural thing that if you start to encounter difficulty at 90 degrees, your arms are going to assist. So now you're combining a pull-up or a chin with a squat. So it's one movement.
Oh, I don't know if I like that.
What's that?
I don't know if I like that.
No, there's nothing to like about it. But the effect, and this is for everybody. I've not had one case where someone's lost strength, weight's gone down, reps gone down. Every one of them has gone up, and this is over 3 months.
Wow. Are you bod potting as well, or just strength and reps?
Just strength and because it's just a hypothesis.
Sure,
right?
sure.
I'm not claiming anything for this other than it's an interesting concept.
Yeah.
But, again, I've seen nothing in the empirical results of the clients to suggest that it's not working. So theoretically, it's a very marked cardiovascular effect. It's like high intensity interval training, which Martin Jabala had finally dialed down to 3 20-second intervals, so 1 minute, producing the equivalency of 45 to 90 minutes of steady state endurance. In Jabala's book, The 1 Minute Workout, he also cites a study by someone, name escapes me, who was training a lot of people with cardiac problems, but he only trained them once a week and they got the same effect. So I remember when his studies came out in the early 90s, I'd sent him a congratulatory email because I thought, yeah, you're breaking new ground here. This is really interesting. And I said, out of curiosity, do you think you could have achieved that benefit with a lower volume even than 3? At that time, it was 30-second intervals. And he said, yeah, absolutely. I think we could have. And then it was like, okay, well, that's interesting. Well, we know once a week works. You're saying you don't even need a full minute's worth of exercise to accomplish the cardiovascular benefit. We know what I'm seeing now is that the aerobic and anaerobic are 2 sides of the same metabolic coin. That, as you get stronger, you can do stuff longer, basically, but I'm seeing like repetition increases of 10 reps every time these people work out, despite the fact I put 20 or 30 pounds on the weight stack.
Repetition increases of additional 10 repetitions.
Yes. Yeah. So again,
what kind of cadence they do? Is this
it's controlled, but it's not super slow. It's
like 2-4 type of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of think everyone has a controlled
natural
cadence.
Yeah. Like an organic. Yeah.
And as long as, I'm watching to make sure no momentum's involved, that they're not just dropping and giving up the negative. But yeah, when you're doing a belt squat with the stack on the second step, you have the multiplier effect of the cam to some degree, but your arms have no choice but to assist. So you're getting a very strong total stimulus, if you will. And there's not a lot of exercises not a lot of muscle groups that aren't involved in that. I mean, biceps, obviously, forearms, obviously, lats, obviously, clavicular portion of the pecs, abs, lower back, But then the other thing that's kind of cool is the motion when you go from here to here is the secondary function of the triceps. So they get activated. But that aside, if the indirect effect has anything to it, it doesn't matter what muscle groups are receiving direct stimulation, because once the switch is hit, it's going to go to all the muscles anyway.
Can you get some video of this? Could you do a video and put it somewhere?
If you go to the heavy duty college, oh, you mean of my clients?
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to get their permission, I guess. But
Yeah,
maybe just get to get one, or even yourself doing it. It'd be fascinating.
the theory of it is already on, not the hybrid exercise, but just the systemic effect is on the videos. Yeah, I just think it's something to try. It's funny, a lot of people like that, and I understand. Oh, you don't want to see, give me before and after photos, but it's like I'm not selling a training program. I'm just
No,
curious.
but I'm curious because I just want to see the exercise, because if I can see it, I can understand even better. I mean, this is fascinating because it's like all I can think about is I'm getting anxiety just listening to you, because I'm like, where's the full body pump? Where's
Yeah,
the even moving to this program I'm doing right now, which is kind of inspired by, I guess, Body by Science and Ryan Hall recently, which is like there's a two-way split essentially, and it's like, it's like 4 or 5 exercises once a week. And even with that, I'm getting that training angst.
yeah,
I'm getting that, I need to get that feeling more
yeah.
regularly, because before this I would have been like still very low volume, like two-way like AB routine, but more like 8 to 10 exercises twice a week, right? And I'd basically
Yeah, I
plateaued at
could.
that.
To
Yeah.
me, and maybe it's my age, but I was finding, because we used to do like a big three. My one of my trainers, Jeremy Heimers, he and I have been training together for years. So he works Wednesday nights. Wednesday nights is when we work out. And
Nice.
I'd always feel, yeah, I don't know if I'm up for this tonight. Like if it wasn't for him being there,
Hmm.
I would have done a Mickey Mouse workout, or I wouldn't have trained. And I remember when I did the bod pod test, my peak didn't show up till 10 days. And that was back in 2006. So now that I'm older, it doesn't stand to reason that no, I'd be recovered in 3 days or 4 days or 5 days. But I could never bring myself to wait 10 days. And when the fact that Jeremy's in there, we're together, I take advantage of that. And what I found is, since I've reduced the volume, I don't have that anxiety because it's one exercise. I got nothing coming after it. So I can focus on this and give my 100%. Whereas, for me at least, if I know I've got 7 more exercises, yeah, I'll take it to that's good enough point in order
Okay.
to get to the other one.
So this is what you're doing this right now as well. This one exercise, this one and done kind
Yeah,
of.
yeah.
Yeah.
One done.
Once a week, one exercise. And how long
Yeah.
have you been doing it for yourself?
About the same time, about 3 months.
And what progress have you seen in yourself?
Same thing. I mean, weights go up every workout, which is, again, I'll be 65 in December. So
Looking good.
I'm happy. Well, thank you. I'll be happy to be stronger, but I'm also looking at experimenting with just doing one exercise. Don't add the hybrid component. That, again, if the indirect effect is real, all it takes is that one compound exercise to hit the switch, in which case now I've got complete latitude. I can do belt squats Wednesday. The next Wednesday, I can do a chest press. Wednesday after that, I could do a seated row. Wednesday after that,
Wow.
I could do the Nautilus leg press. The Wednesday after that, I could do an overhead press. I can do whatever I want, as long as it's a compound movement that hits the switch. And what's interesting is I have been doing that. But, like, for example, I'll do a belt squat and it will not come up in the rotation again for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
But when I do the belt squat again, I'm up 20 pounds and I'm up 10 reps.
Isn't the concern is that you might be missing out on some other benefits always with lower volume and frequency? That's the pushback from the
I just
community.
I don't know what the benefits are, because
Higher,
I strength
go
train to
ahead.
get stronger, right? I'm getting
Well,
strong.
what about like, metabolic benefit, higher
I don't know
caloric burn?
if I'm getting stronger, there is some metabolic benefit because it all comes through the metabolic system, right?
But it's just lower frequency of that benefit potentially, right? Maybe there what other myokines, other things we are stimulating in those sessions.
To me personally, and I know you and I have discussed this,
I'm just
I
playing
think
devil's advocate. Yeah.
no, I think the exercise component is it's not as complex as a lot of us like to think it is. It's pretty simple, you know. Why do you lift weights to get stronger? How do you get stronger? Well, your weights go up or your reps go up or both go up. Well, that's happening.
Yeah.
My pulse rate's through the roof when I finish. So there is a cardiovascular benefit. And I also know that, for example, if you and I are riding a bicycle together and we're on the flat, we can go for an hour or so and converse. That's fine. But as soon as we get to the base of a hill and gravity starts to pull us down, we have to pedal harder. Now we're aware something of a metabolic nature is taking place in our legs and our aerobic system. And the further up we go, the more pronounced that is. And it seems to go in lockstep with lactic acidosis. The greater the lactic acid, again, the back engineering to pyruvate, the greater the aerobic benefit. But it's only about the last 15 to 20 seconds that you really get the aerobic benefit. And that's when you go to failure. You can't complete a revolution of the pedal. You get off the bike, you walk it to the summit, you're still huffing and puffing. So when you look at the 2-hour ride we did, not really a marked cardiovascular effect. The last 20 seconds, big cardiovascular effect. And that ties in with Jabala's research of the 20-second bursts or so. That is present with this from an aerobic or metabolic effect. And I think a lot of people have a psychological dependency upon being in the gym. That's got to be in there tomorrow. It's it's a point of pride. You're showing your diligence. Everything in the culture says you got to be in the gym. Come on, at least 2 or 3 days a week, right? Like this once a week is nonsense. And to reduce that to
one
exercise, come on.
Yeah.
But again, the thing is,
Wow.
that's just the data that I've had. I don't claim anything for it other than the fact that it's interesting, and so when you ask the question, where do you think Mike would have gone? I kind of think he might have gone in this direction.
That's amazing. You gave me some flashbacks there. We went to the Aran Islands as a family recently. Aran Islands are on the coast of Galway here in Ireland.
Yeah.
And we hired some bikes, and I have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I got a trailer on the back of mine, and they were both sitting in the trailer. The wife gets an electric bike. She's cruising past me up a hill. I'm like pedaling super hard, trying to get these kids up this hill. And that was taxing.
Good to see your wife using the technology.
Yeah. I said, next time you'll get a normal bike like me. But it was a lot of fun. Highly recommend it for a trip. If I know it's for Canadians, Americans, long way to come. But if you ever can, do you ever come to visit Galway?
Great. I loved Ireland. I've only been there once. My youngest son, 3 times. Loved it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very good.
No, I think the exercise thing is interesting. And if there are any legs to this hypothesis, I think it yields the potential to be paradigm shifting. But at this point, it is what it is.
Even myself, and I think there is a lot of our colleagues who are probably the most open-minded as it relates to like low volume approaches. It's even like difficult for me, even though I'm currently doing an experiment which isn't too removed.
Yeah.
And so that just says like how difficult it is for people to even consider it. Like that doesn't make any sense,
I know you have to shift your thinking even to comprehend it. But again, if you look at the possibility of the indirect effect being a systemic thing and the switch getting hit systemically, and it's the same thing, I suppose, if you take a testosterone shot, it doesn't matter what muscle you put it in, it's going to have a systemic effect. So there seems to be that this effect within genetic limits will trigger that. But again, it's a hypothesis. I claim nothing more for it than that.
Final question before we start sort of wrapping up, John. How are you integrating this in your business model, right? Because it's one exercise. Is it still $50 a workout, or how does that work?
It's a good question because I remember speaking with Bill DeSimone, um, and he had thought I was kind of with Body by Science, that I was draw a line in the sand, super slow guy. Uh, and then he found out I wasn't. Um, and he had made a statement that resonated, and that was, you have to marry the client's psyche with the soma. They have to have an enthusiasm for what they do in order to do it. If they don't enjoy it, they're not going to do it. So when you're a business owner, there's a fork in the road. You can say, this is the way it is. Remember the old, I'm not giving you what you want, I'm giving you what you need attitude, which a lot of hit people have.
And it doesn't much work so well, that.
Yeah, always. Yeah. But the fork in the road is that what you're offering is so radical compared to what is coming at them daily from the fitness industry,
Right.
that you've got to, if your goal is to ease them into that direction, is to do it gradually, not to slap them across the face, and they will find, I think, that when they extend themselves in a set, that it's self-evident they're not good to go again in a day or two. They need more time. And the other thing is too, that I don't know that taking a set to failure, for example, yields necessarily a superior result. I think that you can get there different ways, right? You can take three
Sure.
sets, the DeLorme and Watkins, or you can do the one set to failure. Both work. I mean, that's well established. And if someone's more of a psyche where they need a couple of warm-up sets before they can tackle that third set, I don't have a problem with it. You just have to match the recovery interval properly. And so for a lot of people, I do DeLorme and Watkins. And for those that are really intellectually curious and want to experiment with that hypothesis that I've suggested, they do it. But it's not a blanket prescription by any means. It's only once I know the clients, and I do know the clients quite well, I know which ones might want to try it.
Mm.
And invariably, when they get success with it, they want to keep doing it. And it's the most excited I've been as a trainer since we did our fat loss study, where you can see hard data coming at you.
Okay.
And it's like, wow, this is kind of new. This is exciting. As
Are there any
opposed
exceptions, or is everyone literally making progress with
to
it?
everyone that I put it on.
Yeah,
I've got maybe 23 people, but I've got someone who's come off a stroke, who's 80 years old. I've got someone who's 86. I've got guys who do heavy labor jobs who are in their 30s, uh, uh, seniors, people that only train once a week, regular folk, not particularly demanding jobs. So I've got a good sampling of diversity in it, and all of them are responding. What does that mean? I don't know.
Do you know what, John? If I start seeing my own progress plateau on this, I might just give that a go as the second half of this experiment or a future experiment. It's very
Well,
interesting.
I'm working on a paper just for myself and for my clients to explain the hypothesis, because it's so out of left field.
Yeah.
That you and I talking about it, I'll probably already shut off the podcast. But
I mean, it's just us two now.
yes. So if I get that finished in a way that I think makes sense, I'll send it to you.
Please
And
do.
yeah, and you can see the data from the clients and and again the principles underlying the hypothesis, to see if the conclusion, you can be my Randy Roach, to see if the conclusions follow from the premises.
Yeah. I'm not sure I'd be as rigorous as he is, but yeah, I'll please do, and I'd love to potentially share it in one of my communities or both. John, thank you so much for making the time. Congratulations on this amazing book. So, guys, go grab it. Mike Mentzer, American Odysseus. It's on Amazon. It's wherever they sell books, probably. Is that
Yeah,
fair to say?
should
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. You can get it on Audible like I did, or hard copy or Kindle as well, probably. I see ebook.
Yeah, I believe it is on Kindle. Yeah.
Yeah. Go to YouTube and check out Heavy Duty College. Amazing videos that Mike and others put together about Mike Mentzer. It's very awesome channel. So go check that out, go subscribe.
Oh,
And then also, if you're interested in John's course with Hit Uni, so Simon Shawcross, Hit Uni. The course is called Heavy Duty, The Life and Legacy of Mike Mentzer, the only official and fullest presentation of Mike Mentzer's life and teachings, including his heavy duty training system and his philosophy and extraordinary biography. You can get 10% off with code HIB10, or just click the link in the description to this video and you can go get that course as well.
I would add, if I might, that Simon and I actually took over or acquired the Mike Mentzer estate about,
I did not know that.
Yeah, about a year or so ago. So our goal is to take his writings and make them available so they don't disappear. I mean, I've seen copies of Heavy Duty 2, for example, selling on eBay for $600. It's ridiculous. So the first project we did is called the Heavy Duty Legacy Edition. And we combined Heavy Duty 1, Heavy Duty 2, and then an essay Mike wrote in May of 2001, just before his death, called The Integrated Man, where he writes his only work of fiction, and put that between the covers of that book. And we have now, when we say official, it is official because we are in charge of his estate now. We have the website, www.mikementzer.org. And that talks about the history as a timeline of Mike's life. And if anyone is interested in his books, we have one available now, and our plan is to release more over the next several years.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't know that. That's great that you guys did that. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think we're all very grateful.
Oh,
so
well,
great job. So there'll be links to that, mikementzer.org as well, wherever you're viewing this, and obviously on our website, highintensitybusiness.com. John, thanks again. We'll wrap it there, but definitely speak soon. And really appreciate your time. Really enjoy.
My pleasure, Lawrence. Always speaking with you. And my God, you're looking younger. What the hell are you doing?
Am I? Yeah. Wow, that's very kind of you.
What have
you must
done?
have
You had a facelift.
Have I? It must be it must be the filter on the camera or something.
Well, whatever
like that.
it is, you look about 10 years younger than when I last spoke to you. It was like,
that's the beard. It's a difference in beard length. I had a much longer beard. Yeah.
Oh,
better lighting, maybe. Yeah. Stop embarrassing me, John. God. And awesome. And for everyone listening, this is Lawrence with High Intensity Business, and we'll talk to you again very soon.